It has been rough week and a really good week at 4 o'clock every day here on the Reid Wilkins Show with Jason Mline. Really pleased to talk to this gentleman, former NHL referee and now a rules analyst for ESPN. So really interesting guy here. It is Dave Jackson checking in. The refs and linesmen travel quite a bit. What is an off day activity on a rare day? You might have a day or two in a city or maybe in your home city. What do refs like to do on the, like, will you guys, if you're in the same city, will you try to go to dinner with another ref or a linesman, hit a movie, or is it just trying to chill out and get the body revitalized?
No, I think there's a lot of that. And I think the longer you're in the league, the more things you find to do, the more relationships you make. I mean, you meet people, you have friendships in all these cities, which is what I miss, probably one of the biggest things I miss. I look at my phone, my contacts. I mean, half my contacts in my phone are people I've met in 32 years of being in the NHL, going to different cities. When I started, there weren't very many Sunbelt cities. There was Anaheim and LA and probably Tampa. So you spend a lot of time, days off, going to movies. And that's guys would go find a movie theater, go see a movie, and maybe meet up with the guys for dinner that night. But now with so many great cities, Sunbelt cities, a lot of guys will, just go hang out. If you're in LA or California, you go walk the boardwalk, go walk the beaches and spend time, play some golf. There's a lot of avid golfers and sightseeing. I mean, there's so many great, I know it sounds sort of kitschy, but Washington, D.C., at the Smithsonian Institutes, New York City, you can walk New York City for days and days and days and never see everything. The museums there. There's so much great stuff to do. And I always tell guys, we're just starting out, take advantage of it. Don't hang in your hotel room and do nothing.
Well, you mentioned golf. Was it not Garrett Rank that didn't he play in the U.S. Open a few years ago? He's like an elite golfer, so that's pretty amazing. How far in advance? Because a big story here was, especially in a hockey mad market like Edmonton, like everybody's dissecting that schedule a couple of days ago. How far in advance does an NHL ref, linesman, how far in advance would you guys know where you're going?
For most of the season, about a month to a month and a half in advance where you're going. It enables you to book your flights, book your hotels, get the best rates. And, there's always going to be changes. There's snowstorms, injuries, guys will get sick, and your schedule will change. But for the most part, about a month and a half in advance.
Okay. I've always wondered about that, right? Because that's not easy for you guys being on the road. And what was home base for you when you were reffing?
Most of my career, I born and raised in Montreal. Worked in the minors in Montreal, and probably the first 7 or 8 years in the NHL. And then I moved south. I crossed the border. I was in Vermont for about 10 years, and then I ended my career in Denver.
So is there any, when the NHL schedule, the ref scheduler, I don't even know who that would be, when he or she is making the schedule, was there any consideration to Dave lives near Montreal and Boston, he'll get a couple more home games for the Canadiens and Bruins, or was there no consideration for that?
For the most part, everybody's sort of required to live within 100 miles of an NHL city.
Okay.
So you don't have guys living in the middle of Montana or something. But traditionally, as a referee, you probably get at least one game a month at home, be a home game. So living in Montreal, I got one game a month. Vermont, I do a lot of Boston and Montreal, probably get one each. And then in Denver, I got one a month. Linesmen would probably get 2 to 3 a month in their home area. My youngest son's now a linesman, lives in the New York area. So, I mean, he's got 3 teams right in that area, plus Philadelphia and Washington. But they do travel you. I mean, I spent probably 20 days a month on the road. It's a lot of hotels.
Yeah. Well, I remember from a linesman perspective, watching in the 80s when I was a kid, there's a lot of Swede Knox and Randy Mitten at Northlands Coliseum because they were both, and I interviewed Randy a couple of years ago. He was awesome to connect with.
Those guys did a lot of Calgary and Edmonton. They back and forth up there. They tended to localize linesmen back in the 90s, early 2000s. So it was a lot more common to have guys see the same linesman all the time. But now they pretty much travel them coast to coast.
Okay, so let's transition into, you mentioned knowing the schedule, and then there's the playoffs. So look, when you do a talk show, Jay and I have been together about a year. I've been doing a talk show or working on a talk show for almost 15 years. You hear a lot from fans. You hear a lot from fans who don't think the people in your profession are always doing a good job. And sometimes I just say, look, we're a sounding board. You can vent frustrations. I'll try to understand the rules best I can. Sometimes we're lucky enough to have somebody like you on, Dave. But I also say, look, if you seriously think that there's an NHL referee who is not overly competent, I say write down his name, and then when the playoff assignments come out, see how many games he gets. Can you talk us through that process of, trying to have a great season so you can work playoff games, how the evaluation works for NHL refs? Because, I mean, hey, the teams want to make the Stanley Cup final. I assume the refs want to make the Stanley Cup final as well.
They absolutely do. And that's the pinnacle of your season. If you get selected for the playoffs, you know you've done a good job. Now, just because you don't get playoffs doesn't mean you had a bad season. There's lots of reasons for that. Guys could be injured half the season. They come back. They're not 100%. You've got rookies in the league. Rookies have to, be better than the guys that have been working year after year. So it's not uncommon for a new guy, whether referee or linesman, not uncommon to go 4, 5, 6 years without getting playoffs. That doesn't mean you had a bad season. It just means you didn't have a better season than guys that are already there. Then you've got guys on the twilight of their career. They might be retiring next year. You've got to break new guys in. So unless you're a guy that works the finals every single year, the boss might say, listen, guy's had a good career. He's only around for another year or two. I'm going to sit him out this year and put a new guy in. So that doesn't mean he had a bad season. It just means his time has come and gone, and, we're going to take you out this year. But really, the validation is if you get playoffs, it means you're doing well. And not everybody gets playoffs. Like there's 36 linesmen, 36 referees. You only get 20 referees and 20 linesmen in the first round. So 40% of the staff goes home, and not everybody can do playoffs. So it's really tough. And then each round it cuts down. You go from 20 referees in round 1 to 12 referees in round 2 to 8 referees to 4 referees. So just getting playoffs is a big step. To try and move on round to round, you're evaluated, and you get there on your performance, not your seniority, not who you know, how you performed.
So let's talk about that evaluation. I mean, we've had a great week in interviewing officials. I mean, you're the second hockey guy. We did a football, we did basketball, we did baseball. So on Wednesday, we were really lucky to have a current CFL ref on the show. And I'm going to ask you about that later, about availability to media for current officials, because it often doesn't happen. So Justin McInnes is an Edmontonian who refs in the CFL. Used to play junior football with Jay over here. So that was a pretty cool connection. And he said, like, we go through every flag, every play that could have been a flag. And he's like, we take the bad calls home with us. Like, we don't like it. In the NHL, how is a ref evaluated? If there might be a tough game for a ref where, there were a lot of iffy calls or controversial calls, what's the process with his superiors to maybe break things down? I know people are really curious about this.
Sure. And I think what you just said too, I don't think there's a referee working in the NHL who doesn't know when he's made a bad call. These guys don't leave the rink and it's just all forgotten. There's a bunch of jokes and, well, I screwed that game up. It couldn't be further from the truth. The amount of nights I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, just replaying a call over and over in my head. And how could I have made that call? Or how could I have missed that call? It puts wrinkles on your face. It gives you gray hair. There is retired officials that are officiating managers, they call them. A simpler term, a supervisor. And they travel all around the league, and they debrief you after the game. And they're there to coach you. They're there to critique you. They're to provide a rating to the boss, how this guy's doing. They're also there as a buffer between management. The GM's upset, and he wants to vent. He goes and finds the supervisor. So I would say as a referee, you probably have a live supervision 40% of your games during the season. And then as soon as you get back to your hotel room, you open up your laptop. The game you just refereed is right there with every penalty listed. You can just click on it. You don't have to watch the whole game. You just click on the penalty or the missed call that you think you missed, and you do self-evaluation right away. And then at mid-season, you get a mid-season mid-season evaluation. So they don't rate you. I'm sure there's an internal rating the boss has, but it covers every category. It covers your the calls you make, your judgment, your physical ability, your skating, positioning, your comportment, how you deal with controversy, your body language is with captains, with coaches, and that's all documented. And if you don't get playoffs at the end of the year, you can't really say, well, I wasn't aware. I thought I was having a great season. If you're honest with yourself, you know how your season's going based on your mid-season evaluation and your in-person evaluations 40% of your games.
Okay, that's awesome information. Dave Jackson, a former NHL ref, now working for ESPN, and we want to get into that broadcasting side of it too. But I want to ask you about this because I get asked this a lot. And look, I host a talk show, so I love interviewing anybody. I wish everybody would talk to me. I've had 3 or 4 chances to interview Bettman over the years, and one day I asked him, would you ever consider refs doing post-game interviews? He said no. He said some of our guys, English isn't their first language. I wouldn't want to put them in a tough situation. And he goes, I don't really know if it would help the fan base that felt slighted in a certain situation. If it were done respectfully or like a pool reporter. So you ref a game, you call a penalty in overtime. Okay. And after the game, there's a request. I'm the pool reporter that day. And I come over, and I say, Dave, obviously that was a huge moment in the game. What did you see on that? And you provide a quote. The NHL doesn't do that. Do you think they should do it? Would you think referees should be available to speak to the media on occasion? Maybe not all the time, but when there's something that might need an explanation.
Well, I think what fans don't realize is that usually when they're up in arms, it's not a question of, wow, that's a really funky rule that we didn't understand. It's usually just, like you said, a missed call. It's not even usually so much a call that was made. It's usually a missed call, and it's usually a blatant call. And if you trot that referee out in front of a bank of reporters and say, hey, why didn't you make that call, Dave? And I said to them, I didn't see it. I missed it. No one's going to be happy. They're going to be going, well, you're incompetent. And how come you didn't see it? You should have seen it.
Right.
So I really don't think trotting a referee out and asking him why you missed a call, because I can guarantee you 99.9% of referees who miss a call, when they watch it on video, will admit, yeah, I missed that call. Did I want to miss it? Of course not. From where I was standing, I had a couple of things I was looking at. I didn't see it. And that's the most honest answer you give. It's not going to make anybody happy. So I really don't see the benefit of asking a referee about a call he made or didn't make. But if it was if it was a rule, some interpretation of a rule, then absolutely, I think it would benefit the fan. But I think you'd have to do it, like you said, as a pool reporter, to trot a guy out in his long johns who's been yelled at all night, just being the verbal abuse. Like, people ask me about the stress of refereeing in the NHL. And how you got to skate for 60 minutes, you don't get a break. It's not the physical stress. We're not skating as hard as players. It's the mental stress. It's the constantly tuning out the white noise, not letting that affect you, and having to manage personalities, having to manage people yelling at you all night long, and trying to do that respectfully and command respect, to then trot a guy out in front of a bunch of reporters who are just going to start yelling stuff at you would be unfair. It'd be a fight or flight type of thing. But if you sent a pool reporter into that room, you're now in their house, you're respectful, you've got NHL security there who would be a moderator should things go off the rails. I think it would be of benefit, but only in that situation.
Yeah, and that's the situation I'm envisioning. So thanks for that. I know Jay has a couple for you, but you were talking about the abuse. I joked with Jay when we were doing this. I said we might have to just play booing in the background to make the refs feel more comfortable when we have them on all week. Anyway.
Yeah.
We are joined by former NHL official and current ESPN rules analyst Dave Jackson here. Dave, I want to know about the process of going from, okay, I'm no longer reffing in the NHL, and now you're a rules analyst for ESPN. I mean, that position wasn't around for the better part of your career, if not most of your career. This is something that's new. in terms of fan engagement, getting an immediate response from somebody that knows what they're talking about. How did that all come about? Was it you approaching ESPN, or did they talk to you? And just take us through that, I guess, transition.
Sure. I don't think the position existed before ESPN and TNT signed their new current deal with the NHL. They both decided to have rule analysts. And ESPN does it in every sport they have. They have it in basketball, in college football, pro football, college basketball. And I just think they felt it was a natural extension, especially there's a lot of new fans in the U.S. A lot of people don't understand the game, didn't grow up playing the game in non-traditional hockey markets. And I think their view was an educated fan becomes a lifelong fan. If you're watching something you don't understand, then you might not pick up, you might not be as interested in it. But if we can try and bring as much understanding of the game and of the rules to the new viewer, the new fan that really wants to learn hockey, it's going to benefit everybody. I think you'll increase your viewership, you'll increase participation, people signing up to play hockey. So I think that was their mindset. We've got it in every other sport. It works well. Let's bring it into hockey. They called me. I'm not really sure how that transpired, who they got my name from, but I know they talked to several people. They asked me if I was interested, would I like to interview for the job? And I said, I would love to. And then what I didn't realize, because once I retired and I'd be sitting on the couch watching hockey and I'd see something happen really controversial and it would get explained and it wouldn't necessarily get explained correctly. And I'd be talking to my wife going, no, that's not the rule. This is the rule I'm talking about. So she said, oh, you'd be great for this job. And I said, yeah, I think I would be. But what I didn't understand was when I was ranting to the television and to my wife, I was taking 2.5 to 3 minutes to do it. It was I'd start here and it was very circular, and then I'd be on this tangent, and then I'd wrap it up, but it would take 3 minutes. Well, what I realized really quickly is I've got about 20 seconds to do that when they bring me on. So I had to really improve my getting straight to the point and being, here's the rule, here's what it is, this is the criteria, and then you can decide if it was the right or wrong call. And I like how you have me down as the ESPN rules analyst, because people come at me all the time calling me an officiating expert. And why don't I dump on the officials if I'm an officiating expert? I'm not a referee expert. I'm a rules analyst. I explain the rules, I explain the criteria, and Reid, if you don't like the call, you're free to say, I think it's the wrong call. Fair enough. But I'm not there to dump on the officials.
Having said that, though, well, it was okay. You're going to ask me this. Well, having said that, though, I mean, maybe there was a time where you might have to suggest a former colleague.
Oh, yeah.
Might have been off the mark. Like, was that tough? Like, did you ever get like, geez, Dave, we went for steak in Chicago every year, and now you're saying I missed that high steak? Yeah.
So going back to the average fan, the people that come at me on Twitter when a call doesn't go their team's way, and they accuse me of being in cahoots. And,
oh, jeez.
I'm in cahoots with the referees and they can do no wrong. But I really think that short of me saying the worst thing I could about them, short of me saying that, I don't think I can ever appease the fan who gets a call going against them. But what I will say, and I've said it many times, is that if the referee on the ice was watching the same replay as you and I and had a chance to look at it again, he would agree that was not the right call. That wasn't his best call, and he would probably not have made that call.
So obviously, when you're officiating on the ice, you have a prep. You go through your prep for the day and how to prepare yourself adequately for that game, that whether it's at night or in the afternoon, what have you. How do you prep? Because as far as I understand, you're doing this out of like a studio in Bristol. If I'm not mistaken.
Studio in my home.
Oh, you're in your home.
Okay. Nice. Okay.
So how do you prep? Because you're on for that slate of games, and there's probably numerous games going on every night. How has the prep for you changed from when you just had to throw on the skates and know those two teams? I mean, I can't imagine how you'd get ready for that night.
Well, it's so playoffs, especially. There's times we got 4 games going a night, and if the 2 early games go in overtime, I got 4 games going, and you're scanning the screens looking for carnage. And when you see carnage, you turn the volume up on that game, and you let their producers know that, hey, I got something going on in this game. But normally it's very seldom do I do more than one game at a time. So I'm able to, a lot of times, back-to-back games, and I'll have one game going followed by another game. There really is no prep other than staying current with the rules, staying current with the standard as well. Like, that's important. I speak with Director of Officiating Stephen Walkham several times a year, and just like, if something changed on the slashing, the hooking, the cross-checking standard, and he'll update me and let me know what the standard is. I try and attend the officiating training camp every second year. I'll sit in on the rule sessions, watch their video presentation, what they're telling the referees. So, guys, we're watching video on all these different infractions. This is a penalty, this isn't. And that's good for me to see, because then when I see a call in a game, the announcers might go, well, in my day, that wasn't called. And I say, I agree with you. In my day, I didn't call that. But these guys are now being instructed that they have to call that. So you may not like that call. You might not agree with that standard, but that's what they're being told. And that's what the GMs want them calling. So it helps me knowing the standard. But by the same token, there's games where I can come on 4 times in a game, and then I can go 3-4 games where they don't need me. The games just fly smoothly. And the line I always remember, I had a buddy who used to fly a 777 from Toronto Pearson to London. He'd do that several times a month. And I said, how cool is that job? That must be really exciting. And he said, it's hours upon hours of doing nothing, punctuated by seconds of sheer panic. And that's how it is for me sometimes. So I'll have 2 games back to back, and I'll go 5 periods with nothing happening. And you're just kind of sitting there. You become a little complacent. You're watching the game, and all of a sudden the goalie gets blown up, the puck's in the back of the net, the crowd's cheering, the teams are yelling, and my producer's coming at me going, what do you got? I'm going, well, let me see 1 or 2 more replays, and I'll let you know what I got. But so, you can't get complacent. You have to be paying attention. You got to be wide awake. So there's a lot of coffee being drank some nights.
Well, I think the genesis of Ref Week, as we've called it here, obviously this is a hockey market. So I believe it was something to do with goaltender interference and but I got to ask you about that, because is goaltender interference the toughest call to analyze with consistency?
I think so. Only because it comes down to judgment. It's not like analyzing an offside challenge where you've got the blue line, you've got the puck. As long as you can have a good angle on it, it's pretty black and white. There are certain offside plays where, guy carries it in backwards and his teammates cross him. But for the most part, it's an easier determination. Video goaltender interference, it's not really a science. It's more of an art. And I can tell you what the standard is. I can tell you what the rule is. I can tell you what the interpretation is. But it comes down to 1 or 2 people in Toronto seeing that play and determining it had an effect on the play or it didn't have an effect on the play. And I can't read their mind. So I'm trying to tell you what I think this call is, where it falls in the hierarchy of the rules and the standard. And then I say, in my opinion, this goal is coming back. And it'll happen. Sure enough, they go, no, it's a good goal. And so I just got to chalk it up. As long as I keep my average high, I'm okay. But I'm not always right. And it's really tough to guess what somebody else's judgment is going to be on any given play.
Dave, I think it would. I said we'd try to be around 20 minutes. We're coming up on 30, so thank you. So I'll just ask you one more. Maybe we can have you on again, because listeners are putting in questions, but we've kept you too long already, but more than I said I would. So I'm sorry about that. But I have to ask you about dealing with, and I've asked every official this week about dealing with confrontation. A player's pissed off, a coach is screaming at you. How, or maybe you just have a funny story about something like that. But I mean, that's something that's visible on TV or when people are in the stands. That player's mad. This coach is mad. Paul Maurice is screaming. I don't think Knobloch screams very much, the Oilers guy. But, your secret to dealing with a tense situation with a player or coach.
Well, I think a lot of times you try and distance yourself from it, initially anyways. You don't want to run from controversy, but if you can avoid it and you realize that it's not going to be beneficial if I skate over to that bench right now and get in that coach's face, it's not going to really benefit either of us, because then I might be forced to give him a bench minor penalty, and I'm going to be accused of causing it because I went over there. At the same time, if there's something that he just doesn't understand, and you want to explain it to him and you think it's going to settle things down, then you choose. I always tell young referees, you never have to go over to the bench unless you feel it's going to benefit you as a referee. And if it's going to make your job easier, then you go over there and take care of it. If it's going to escalate things and make it worse, you stay away from it, call the captain over, send a message. And I think when you have a case like that where the coach is really upset and going over there is going to make it worse, I would usually call the captain over and say to him, listen, I know so-and-so is pretty angry right now. You have my word. The first commercial stoppage, I'll come over and talk to him about it. He'll go over and tell his coach that, and the coach, 9 times out of 10, he'll give you a little wave and say, okay. And then you go over during a commercial stoppage. There's no cameras on you. And you can have a full 60, 90-second, he might not agree with you, and you might go at each other, but you're not in the spotlight. They're not waiting to drop the puck. TV cameras aren't on you. And I think they respect you giving them the time. They might not agree with you, but you allow them to vent. And I think that's really important.
Dave, this was incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you so much for doing this. You're incredibly generous with your time, incredibly informative. And I may bug you again at some point, but this was just outstanding. Thank you so much for doing this. We would love doing Ref Week, and we've loved having you on. We really appreciate it. Can't thank you enough.
I just love talking hockey. And you know what? We could even pick some other topic within officiating. I mean, what do guys do to get ready in the off season? What's their training? What's their path to the NHL? I mean, I love talking hockey. So anytime, guys.